The great hall of the Zellery Empire buzzed with energy. Tall windows let in bright sunlight that danced on the polished floors. Alien nobles, with their colorful robes and shining jewels, gathered around the marble throne. The air was filled with quiet whispers and curious glances. At the center of the hall, a young woman stood with her arms crossed, a smile playing on her lips. Princess Lyra, daughter of Empress Vesha, was no stranger to power or respect. She was known across the empire for her sharp mind and quick tongue. Today, however, her eyes sparkled with amusement at something unusual. From the wide entrance of the hall, a figure stepped forward. He was a man unlike any the Zellery had seen before. His skin was pale, his clothes simple and worn. He carried no flashy weapons, only a worn leather bag slung over one shoulder. The human warrior was tall and strong, but his strength was quiet and steady, not loud or flashy. The courtiers gasped. Many had heard stories about humans that they were weak, unorganized, and uncivilized. To them, this human was nothing but a joke. Yet the man walked forward with a calm, steady gaze. Princess Lyra laughed. Her laugh was light but filled with the pride of her people. "Human warrior," she said aloud, her voice carrying through the hall. "How funny, you expect us to fear you. You have no armor, no weapons, no power. You're a child playing a dangerous game." The human's eyes met hers. He did not look angry or afraid. Instead, a small, confident smile touched his lips. "I have not come to scare you with weapons or armor," he said simply. "I have come to show you that strength is not always what it seems." The nobles whispered among themselves. Some frowned. Others exchanged doubtful glances. But none dared to challenge the princess, who was known for her fearless spirit. Empress Vesha, seated on her throne, watched quietly. Her face was calm, but unreadable. She had called the human to her court, but she kept her reasons secret for. Now, the human warrior's name was Elias. He came from a distant planet called Earth, where humans had learned to survive through intelligence, creativity, and courage. In a galaxy full of powerful species, humans were often underestimated. That was their secret advantage. Lyra stepped closer. "What makes you think you can stand here and challenge the Zellery Empire? What do you want from us?" Elias met her. "Gaze steadily. I come with a message that strength is more than weapons and power. It is about heart, will, and the courage to stand for what is right. I want peace between our people." The court erupted in murmurs. Peace was a strange idea to many. The Zellery Empire had fought wars for centuries to grow strong and powerful. To speak of peace with a human was almost insulting. Lyra laughed again, louder this time. "Peace? From a weak human, you insult us all. If you want peace, prove your strength. Face our champions in combat."
Oh.
The room grew silent. This was a challenge the Zellery would accept without question. Their warriors were unmatched. Elias was no match for their advanced weapons and technology. But Elias nodded calmly. "I accept." A captain stepped forward. "Then prepare yourself. Human, you will fight in the arena tomorrow. If you survive, we may listen to your words." The crowd cheered. They wanted to see the human fail. Lyra's smile faded as she studied Elias. There was something about him, a quiet confidence that did not come from arrogance but from something deeper. She did not yet understand it, but she knew the coming. Days would change everything. That night, the palace was alive with excitement.
Oh.
Nobles made bets on how long the human would last. Many believed it would be over in minutes, but Elias did not sleep. He trained quietly, practicing moves that were strange to Zellery eyes. His strength was not in flashy weapons, but in speed, intelligence, and careful observation. Lyra watched from a balcony, feeling a mix of curiosity and doubt. Could this human really be more than a joke? Could he challenge the mighty Zellery? The next day, the arena was packed. Thousands of Zellery citizens gathered to watch the fight. Bright banners fluttered in the breeze. The sun shone down on the sandy pit below. Lyra took her seat, eyes fixed on the entrance. Elias appeared, calm and ready. The first champion stepped forward. He was a giant, armored in shining plates, wielding a heavy plasma sword. The crowd roared. But Elias did not panic. He moved with careful speed, dodging the heavy strikes. He used the champion's strength against him, leading him to trip on the uneven ground. With one swift move, Elias disarmed him. The crowd gasped. The champion knelt, defeated but unharmed. One by one, Elias faced more champions. Each was faster or stronger, but none could catch him off guard. He used his mind as much as his body, predicting moves and turning their power into weakness. Lyra felt her laughter die in her throat. The human was no fool. He fought with a skill and courage that surprised her deeply. When the last champion fell, Elias stood alone in the arena, breathing steadily. The crowd was silent, shocked. Then Lyra stood and clapped slowly. "We're stronger than I thought," she said, her voice steady. "Perhaps there is more to humans than I believed." Elias looked at her and nodded. "Strength is not only muscle or weapons. It is heart. It is the will to stand even when others doubt you."
Out.
Empress Vesha rose from her throne. "You have earned our attention, human warrior. Tomorrow, you will meet with me. We will talk of peace and the future." The hall emptied slowly, but the quiet excitement remained. A new chapter had begun, one where the laughter of scorn might turn into the hope of unity. Princess Lyra stayed behind, looking out at the stars. The human warrior had changed everything with his courage and calm. And deep inside, she felt the first stirrings of a secret that would change her life forever. The sun rose bright over the capital city of the Zalari Empire. The streets buzzed with excitement and tension. Word had spread quickly. Tomorrow's challenge would be unlike any other. The human warrior Elias, who had surprised everyone with his skill, was about to face the true test. Princess Lyra walked through the palace gardens, her thoughts heavy. She still remembered how Elias had moved in the arena, quiet, calm, but stronger than anyone had expected. Many nobles had begun to whisper doubts about their own people's strength. Lyra's mother, Empress Vesha, awaited her in a quiet chamber. The Empress's face was calm but serious. "Lyra," she said softly, "you must understand. Elias is more than a warrior. He carries something important. I want you to meet him before tomorrow's final battle." Lyra nodded, though a question hovered in her mind. Why was her mother so interested in a human? She decided to learn the truth for herself. Later that day, Elias was led to a private room inside the palace. The room was simple but comfortable. He sat quietly, eyes steady, waiting. Lyra entered, her face serious. "You surprised everyone," she said. "But this is only the beginning. Tomorrow, you face the Empire's strongest champions. Do you really believe you can win?" Elias looked up. "I do not come to win by strength alone," he said. "I come to show another way." Lyra frowned. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "Gently. The Zelar depend on weapons and power. I have something different: strategy, patience, and respect. Sometimes the best victory is the one without bloodshed." Lyra was silent. She had never heard such words in her world of endless battles. "You speak as if war can be avoided," she said. "But our empire was built on war. How can peace protect us?" Elias stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "War is a tool," he said, "but it is not the only way. Humans have learned that true strength comes from understanding others, from working together. If you fight only for power, you lose more than you gain." Lyra felt a strange feeling, a mix of curiosity and doubt. Could this human's ideas be real? Or were they just words from a stranger? That night, Lyra walked alone through the palace corridors. She stopped outside a door and listened. Inside, she heard her mother's voice, speaking quietly but firmly. "There are forces within the Empire that do not want peace," Empress Vesha said. "They fear what Elias represents. They will try to stop us." Lyra's heart quickened. What did her mother know that she did not? The next morning, the arena was even fuller than before. Thousands gathered to watch the final battle. Champions who awaited Elias were the strongest warriors the Empire had to offer, each trained in deadly combat and armed with the latest weapons. But Elias did not carry a sword or shield. Instead, he carried only a small device, shaped like a flat stone. The crowd whispered in confusion and disbelief. Princess Lyra sat high in the stands, her eyes fixed on Elias. She saw calm determination in his face. Into the arena, fierce warrior covered in armor that glowed with energy, the fight began. The champion struck quickly, his weapon flashing like lightning. But Elias moved with speed and care, dodging every blow. The crowd gasped as Elias's movements seemed almost like a dance. Then, Elias raised his hand and pressed the small device. A sudden pulse of light spread from the device. It was not a weapon, but something different. A wave of energy that slowed the champion's movements. Not by force, but by disrupting the power in his armor. The champion stumbled, confused. Elias used this moment to disarm him and help him to his feet. The crowd was silent. No one had expected this. One by one, the other champions entered the arena. Elias did not fight with anger or violence. Instead, he used his device to neutralize their weapons, to calm their rage, and to show them another way. Slowly, the champions lowered their weapons. The final battle had become a challenge of minds, not fists. Princess Lyra stood, astonished. She saw the respect in the eyes of the champions as they bowed to Elias. The crowd slowly began to cheer not for violence, but for peace and cleverness. When the battle ended, Empress Vesha rose from her throne and spoke. Today we witness something new. The strength of a warrior is not only in his arms, but in his heart and mind. Elias has shown us a way forward. Lyra approached Elias after the crowd had left. You have changed many minds today, she said quietly. Even mine. Elias smiled. Change is never easy, he said, but it is the only path to a better future. Lyra's thoughts were still full of questions. She remembered the secret conversation she had overheard and wondered what her mother's true plan was. As the sun set over the empire, Lyra looked up at the stars. The human warrior had arrived as a stranger, laughed at by many, but now he had become a symbol of hope. The real battle, she knew, was only beginning. The day after the battle that wasn't, the palace was quiet, almost too quiet. The court's usual chatter was replaced by thoughtful silence. Princess Lyra sat in her private chambers, staring at the small device Elias had used in the arena. It was simple but powerful, and it had changed everything. Her mind was full of questions, but one question burned brighter than the rest. Why had her mother, Empress Vesha, brought Elias here? What was the truth behind his sudden arrival? Later that afternoon, Lyra found herself standing before her mother's private study. The heavy doors were slightly open, and through the cracks she heard the soft murmur of voices. Curious, she stepped. Inside, Empress Vesha was there, seated at a large desk. But what surprised Lyra most was the man beside her. It was Elias. Lyra, her mother said calmly when she saw her. Come in. It is time you learned the truth. Lyra's heart quickened. She had expected secrets, but not this. Empress Vesha motioned for Elias to speak. He looked at Lyra with gentle eyes. Princess, he began, there is something you need to know about me, ... about your family. Lyra's breath caught. What do you mean? Elias took a deep breath. Many years ago, before you were born, I was part of a mission to your planet. At that time, the humans and Zellery were enemies, locked in a long and bitter war. Lyra listened carefully, her eyes fixed on Elias. In the middle of that war, Elias continued, I met your mother, Vesha. We fought on opposite sides, but we saw in each other something more than enemies. We found peace in a time of war. Empress Vesha nodded, her eyes shining with memories. We fell in love, Elias, and you became the father of this child. Lyra's world seemed to tilt. You are my father. Elias smiled softly. Yes, Lyra, I am your father. The room was silent for a long moment. Lyra struggled to understand. She had always believed her father was lost to the war, or worse. The truth was far different. Empress Vesha spoke again. Kept this secret to protect you? The Empire would never accept a human as the father of a princess. There are those who would use that knowledge to destroy us both. Lyra looked at Elias, feeling a mixture of anger, confusion, and hope. Why did you come now? Elias's eyes were steady. Because the time has come for the Empire to change. War has cost us too much. Together we can build a future where humans and Zalari live in peace. Lyra took a deep breath. The laughter she had once given him now felt distant and wrong. She saw not a stranger, but her father, a man who had risked everything for love and peace. But the Empire will not accept this easily, Lyra said. There are those who will fight to keep the old ways. Empress Vesha nodded. Yes, that is why we must be careful. But we will stand strong. As the sun set outside the palace, Lyra felt a new strength rising inside her. Her family's past was no longer a secret. It was a bridge to a new future. That night, she stood on the balcony looking at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns. But now she knew she was not alone. Her father was here, and together they would face whatever came next. Would you like me to write part 4 next? Here is part 3 of your story, written in simple, clear English, third-person style, around 950 words. Clean and engaging, part 3. The hidden past the halls of the Zellary Palace felt colder to Princess Lyra now. The secret her mother had whispered, the night before, echoed in her mind. Elias, the human warrior, was not just a visitor or an enemy. He was her father. Lyra could hardly believe it. How could her mother keep such a secret all these years? How could a human be her father when the Zellarian humans had been enemies for so long? She sought her mother in the private chamber where Empress Vesha sat quietly, looking out at the stars. Lyra's voice trembled. Mother, why didn't you tell me? Why hide Elias from me all these years? Empress Vesha turned slowly. Her eyes were tired but full of strength. I did not tell you because the truth was dangerous, Lyra. Elias was a soldier in the war between our peoples. He was captured and disappeared. We thought he was lost forever. Lyra's heart pounded. So, he is alive. And you brought him here now? Why? Because the war is not over, Vesha said softly. There are those who want to keep fighting, to keep our peoples divided. But Elias is proof that there can be another way. Lyra sat down slowly, trying to understand. But how do you know he is my father? Vesha reached out and showed Lyra a small device, a family token, a symbol only their bloodline carried. This was his, she said. Passed down through generations, hidden during the war. I have waited for the right time to bring him back. Lyra's mind raced with questions. How had Elias survived? What had he done during the war? And why had he returned now? Later that day, Lyra sought out Elias. She found him in the palace gardens, sitting quietly among the glowing plants. When he saw her, he stood and bowed his head. Princess, he said gently, I know this is hard for you. Lyra nodded. It is more than hard. It changes everything I believed. Elias smiled sadly. I was young when the war began. I fought not to conquer, but to protect my people. But I learned that strength without understanding only brings pain. Lyra sat beside him, feeling the weight of the past and the hope of the future. Why come back now? Because the war is not over, Elias said. The same forces that once divided us still work in the shadows. They want to keep us enemies. Lyra looked up at the stars. What can we do? Together, we can show our people that peace is possible, Elias said, that we are stronger united than apart. In the days that followed, Lyra and Elias met often. They shared stories, memories, and plans. Lyra learned about the human world, its struggles, its dreams, and its courage. Elias learned about the Zellari, their culture, their fears, and their hopes. Slowly a bond grew between them, not just of blood, but of respect and trust. But the shadows were not idle. Whispers of their meetings reached the ears of powerful nobles who feared change. They plotted to stop this new alliance before it could begin. One evening, Lyra received a message, an invitation to a secret meeting from a trusted ally. She knew it was a test of her loyalty and courage. As she prepared to leave, Elias took her hand. Be careful, he said. The path we walk is dangerous, but it is the right one. Lyra nodded, determination shining in her eyes. Peace. I will face any danger. She stepped into the night, ready to fight not with weapons, but with hope. The night was quiet but full of tension. Princess Lyra moved carefully through the dim palace corridors, her heart beating fast. She was on her way to the secret meeting called by an ally she trusted. The message had been clear. There were those inside the Empire who wanted to stop the peace talks. They would try anything to keep the old war alive. Lyra's mind raced with questions. Who were the enemies hiding in the shadows? How deep did their power go? What would happen if they failed to stop them? She reached a hidden door behind a tapestry and tapped a secret code. The door opened silently, and she slipped inside a small room filled with important figures, loyal nobles, advisors and soldiers who believed in peace. At the center stood Captain Rillen. It's a brave man known for his honesty and courage. Princess, he said, bowing slightly, we have learned that some in the court are planning to sabotage the peace. They want to stop Elias and you from changing the Empire's future. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Who are they? Rillen shook his head. We don't know all their names yet, but they have allies in the army and the council. They fear what Elias represents: a human, a warrior, and your father. The room fell silent. The truth was harsh, but the threat was real. We must act quickly, Lyra said. If they succeed, war will return. Rylan nodded. We have a plan to protect Elias during the next public meeting with the Empress, but we need your help. Lyra agreed without hesitation. Tell me what to do. The following day, the palace was alive with energy. The Empress would meet with her council and invited guests, including Elias. The public gathering was meant to show unity and strength. Lyra stayed close to Elias as they walked through the grand halls. He looked calm but alert, ready for whatever might come. As they entered the council chamber, Lyra noticed strange glances and whispers. Some nobles' faces were cold and hard. The Empress spoke first. We face a turning point. The galaxy watches us. We must decide if we choose war or peace. Then one of the council members, Lord Vecker, stood. His voice was sharp and filled with suspicion. How can we trust a human? How do we know Elias is not a spy, here to destroy us from within? The room erupted in murmurs. Elias stepped forward. I am no spy. I fought for my people, yes, but I fought to protect them, not to harm others. I came here to build peace. Lord Vecker sneered. Peace, you weaken us. You make us vulnerable. Princess Lyra felt anger rise. Vecker, she said firmly, you speak without proof. Elias has shown more courage and wisdom than many here. We must not let fear rule us. The Empress raised her hand to silence the room. Enough. We will hold a vote to decide if Elias will stay and continue the talks. The tension was thick as the council voted. Many nobles feared change. Others hoped for a new future. Suddenly, the doors burst open, and armed soldiers stormed in. They moved quickly toward Elias. Protect him, Lyra shouted, stepping between Elias and the soldiers. Captain Rylan and his loyal guards appeared, blocking the attackers. A fierce but silent struggle began. Lyra's heart pounded as she watched. The attack was not just physical, it was a clear message that some inside the Empire would kill to keep their power. Elias stood firm, calm, and ready. We do not want more bloodshed, he said, his voice steady. We will defend peace. The attackers were forced back by Rylan's guards. The council chamber fell silent again. The Empress looked around, her face serious. This violence will not be tolerated. We will find those responsible. Lyra turned to Elias, feeling a new respect. You face more than battles in the arena. You face enemies who want to destroy everything. Elias smiled softly. That is why we must be stronger together. That night, Lyra and Elias met with Captain Rylan and their trusted allies. They planned how to protect the peace and expose the traitors. Lyra's thoughts returned to the stars outside her window. The path ahead was dangerous, but the hope of a new future gave her strength. She knew the war was not over, but now she was ready to fight not with hatred but with courage and heart. The palace was quiet, but there was no peace. After the attack on the council chamber, fear hung in the air like smoke. Extra guards stood at every gate. Every visitor was searched. And behind every polite smile, there was suspicion. Elias remained calm. He trained in the gardens each morning, spoke with the Empress in the afternoons, and spent his evenings in study and quiet talks with Lyra. But deep inside, he knew the shadows were not done. Those who wanted war would strike again, Princess. Lyra, too, felt the weight of what was coming. Her mother had given her more responsibility, and now she sat in council meetings, listened to military briefings, and read old records. But her heart kept returning to a single thought: the people didn't know the full truth. They didn't know who Elias truly was. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the horizon, Lyra stood on the palace balcony with Elias. "There is something I must do," she said. Elias looked at her. "What is it?" "I want to tell thee people everything," she said. "Not just that you're a warrior or a guest. I want them to know you are my father." Elias's eyes widened slightly. "It is a dangerous choice." "I know," Lyra said. "But hiding truth has caused nothing but fear. The Empire needs to know that peace is not weakness, that love between enemies is possible, that hope is real." Elias was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. "Then I will stand beside you." The next morning, Empress Vesha called a public gathering. Across the capital, citizens poured into the square. Giant screens lit up in cities across the empire. Everyone waited to hear what the Empress and her daughter would say. Lyra stepped forward first. Her voice was clear and strong. "I speak to you today not just as a princess, but as a daughter, the daughter of a warrior many of you once called." "The enemy," the crowd murmured. "My father is Elias, a human. He was once a soldier in the war. More than that, he is a man who chose peace over hate, came not with weapons but with wisdom." Now she paused and looked directly into the cameras. "You may feel fear. You may feel doubt. But look at the cost of endless war. Look at the generations of loss. We can be more than enemies. We can be builders of something new." The crowd was quiet, unsure. Then Elias stepped forward. "I do not ask for your trust. Ask only for your eyes. Look at what I have done and judge me by my actions. I do not want your empire. I do not want your throne. I want a future for my daughter and for all of you, where children do not grow up learning to hate." A moment passed. Then a voice from the crowd shouted, "Peace is weakness." Others joined in. A group pushed forward, shouting angrily. But something happened that no one expected. From behind the crowd, a group of war veterans, old Zalari soldiers, stepped forward. Their leader, General Corvin, raised his hand. "I fought in this war," he said. "I lost my brothers in that fight. But I've seen enough blood. If a human and a princess can find peace, then maybe we can too." The crowd fell quiet again. The Empress stepped forward. "Let all who want to speak, speak," she declared. "But let no one raise a blade today." That night, the city buzzed with talk. Some were still angry, still afraid. But others, especially the young, felt something new, hope. But the shadows were not done yet. 2 nights later, Lyra was awoken by an explosion. Flames rose from the lower wing of the palace. Guards ran through the halls. Somewhere in the smoke and fire, someone was shouting Elias's name. Lyra grabbed her coat and rushed to the source. Her heart pounded. She found Elias in the smoke, helping a young servant who had been caught in the fire. His arm was burned, but his eyes were sharp. "Saboteurs," he said. This was not an accident. Erlin and his soldiers arrived moments later. "We found one of them," he said. He confessed. "The same group that attacked the council? They're planning something bigger." The Empress gathered her guards. "We will find them," she said. "And this time, we will not wait for them to strike first." As healers treated Elias's arm, Lyra sat beside him. "They're trying to stop us. They're afraid." Elias nodded. "That means we're doing something right." Lyra squeezed his hand. "Then we keep going, no matter what." Outside, The fire was finally dying. But inside the hearts of the people, something new had started to burn, the fire of truth, of courage, of change. The fire in the palace had finally died. Black smoke still floated in the air, but inside the royal walls, something stronger had survived hope. Elias sat quietly in the healing chamber, his arm wrapped in soft bandages. Beside him, Princess Lyra paced back and forth. Her eyes were tired, but her spirit had not broken. Empress Vesha entered the room. Her face was serious, but her voice calm. "We found the last traitors," she said. "They were hiding inside the northern barracks. The guards have arrested them." Elias stood slowly. "That's good, but this is not the end. The idea of hate still lives. We cannot destroy it with swords." Vesha nodded. "Oh, but we can replace it with truth." Lyra looked at both of them, then let us speak the truth to the entire empire openly. Just in the capital. Let every world, every colony, hear the story. That evening, the Empress sent messages across the stars. A galaxy-wide broadcast would be held, the first in generations. Billions of Zalari citizens and human allies tuned in. Screens lit up on every space station, every city, every village. No one wanted to miss it. Standing on a large platform under the twin moons, the Empress began. "My people," she said, "our empire has stood for thousands of years. We have survived war, loss, and betrayal. But we have also known love, unity, and progress." She turned to her daughter and Elias, who stood beside her. "You know Princess Lyra. Today, you will know her father." There was a pause. The galaxy held its breath. "He is not Zalari. He is human." Voices rose. Shock spread through the crowds across different worlds. "I know some of you are angry," the Empress continued. "You may ask why we hid the truth, but we did it to protect our child. And now, we share it to protect our future." Lyra stepped forward. "My father was once your enemy, but he is also a man of honor. He chose peace, even when war was easier. He saved lives when he could have taken them." Elias looked into the camera and spoke softly. "I am not here to rule. I am not here to divide. I am here because love can grow even in war. I am here because this galaxy is tired of fighting." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then slowly, messages of support began to appear across the galaxy. A young Zalari artist on a mining colony painted an image of Lyra and Elias standing together. Human pilot from Mars posted a message. "Peace is power." Psst. On a quiet farming moon, children played without fear for the first time in years. But not everyone accepted the message so easily. A few high commanders on the outer edges of the empire refused to believe the broadcast. They saw it as weakness. They called for rebellion. Empress Vesha was prepared. She met with her generals, advisors, and most loyal allies, including Captain Rillan. "We will not start another war," she said, "but we will defend this peace." The next few days, Lyra and Elias traveled across the empire. They visited border worlds, trade planets, and former war zones. They met with soldiers and farmers, children and elders. They listened. They answered questions. They told their story over and over again. At first, many were cold, but the more they spoke, the more minds began to change. One evening, on a desert world scarred by battles, an old soldier stood before Elias and said, "I fought against your kind. I lost friends. But now I see you fight harder for peace than anyone I've known. Maybe I was wrong." Elias only bowed his head. "Thank you." After weeks of travel, Lyra, Elias, and the Empress returned to the capital. There, a new ceremony was prepared. But this time, it was not for war or power. It was for unity, in the great hall of the palace. Under banners of both the Zalari Empire and the human colonies, the Empress stood before her people and declared, "From this day forward, we begin. A new chapter, one where humans and Zalari may walk together. One where fear does not control our choices. One where a daughter can proudly call her father, even if he is from another world." The crowd stood and clapped. Tears filled Lyra's eyes as she looked at Elias. He had come from a distant world, once seen as the enemy. But now, he was no longer just a warrior, or even just a father. He was a symbol of change. The journey had not been easy. There had been danger, doubt, and darkness. But through it all, they had chosen hope. That night, as the stars sparkled above, Lyra stood on the balcony once more. She turned to Elias. She said, smiling softly. I laughed at you the first time I saw you. Elias chuckled. I remember. I thought you were just some strange, proud human warrior. But I was wrong. You were much more. Elias looked at her with pride. And you, my daughter, are stronger than I ever imagined. They stood together, father and daughter, beneath the endless stars, ready to face whatever the future would bring, together.